Good morning and welcome to the Zach Ratliff Show. I'm Zach. It's Friday, everybody. Happy Friday to you. Glad you made it to this part of your week. Thank God for another day. It's going to be a beautiful day here. Mid 90s. I'm headed to the river, and so it's going to be a good time. And I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope God blesses your weekend. I hope God blesses your day. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Mortgage Financial, here in Texarkana. I'd like to thank Elmwood Custom Goods, and I'd like to thank Church on the Rock, Texarkana. That's churchontherock.org. So give them a look, look them up, see what they can do for you, and I appreciate you reaching out to them. Okay, I'm just glad it's Friday, everybody. But I'm glad for every day. I'm not one of the, and on Mondays, I'm not one of this, oh, it's Monday, it's going to be a tough day. Thank God for another day. Now, I don't know what causes me to be that way. I just am. Maybe it's having laid in a coma for 10 plus days at one point in my life that, hey, I'm just glad to wake up every day. And so, I thank God for it, and we're going to move forward. Okay, let's get to something that I've been talking about before the podcast started when I was still on the radio. And that is Jerome Powell and how he's out to get Donald Trump and punish us for electing Donald Trump. He's a creature of the swamp. He is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he serves, quote unquote, at the pleasure of the president. However, the Supreme Court has held that he can't be just let go without cause. Okay, without cause. So if you go to CNBC this morning, it says White House accuses Powell of mismanaging the Federal Reserve, citing a headquarters renovation. So the Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought has suggested Powell misled Congress about a pricey renovation of the central bank's headquarters. So if they can show that he's mismanaging funds and he's lied about the use of it, there's cause. There's about to be immense pressure, I think, put on Jerome Powell to step aside because he won't cut the rates. He does not want the economy to grow like it would. If he came out with a 1% rate cut right now, this thing would pop off, our economy would grow, and that's part of Donald Trump's plan, if you listen to him, is, yeah, we're adding some debt. Yes, we have to grow our way out of where we are through tariffs and everything else. Our economy has to be doing so well that we can pay down our debt. And that debt, we need the interest rates to be lower so that we get a better prices on our loan. So this is about to hit big. And this article goes, it's worth reading. It says the broadside by the Office of Management, it just kind of goes on to say, look, this is what's happening. Jerome Powell won't do what he's supposed to do. So they're going after him in every way they can, and with facts, right? They're not, unlike the Democrats, they're not just making stuff up and throwing it out there. They're like, hey, here's the reason we can do this. Get out. So I'm excited to see the process. I'm excited to see how it works. I'm excited to see what happens. But I've been calling this since well before the election. I'm still not dead set. Listen, our economy is coming back. Now, it's often underreported right now that it's coming back. But if it was doing just the least bit bad, they would have already brought the interest rates up. They're claiming there's going to be 2 cuts this year. I don't think Jerome Powell does it. I think he leaves us flat. Now, I've been wrong about a lot of stuff before. Maybe I am. I hope that the pressure convinces him to drop. But, they were already saying back in January there are going to be multiple cuts this year, and they've refused to do it. Now, for July, maybe they will. I don't think he does it. I think at this point his heels are dug in. He's going to prove Donald Trump that he's untouchable. And that's where this comes up with this mismanagement of funds and cause. So we'll see what happens. I I'm excited that there's some movement there. I like the political gamesmanship. I don't always like what it leads to, but I enjoy the actual politics of watching the way all of these things are managed. All right, talking about politics, let's go to Fox News, and then Fox News on X. John Fetterman. Now, I'm going to read this to you, and then I'll give you the Ratliffology on it. So, John Fetterman turns on his own party yet again, slamming the Democrats for vilifying ICE agents, saying who he says are literally agents who he says are literally following the law meant to keep America and Americans safe. Absolutely right. I agree with that. But then the headline is John Fetterman going to move to the Republican Party? I don't think he will. He's a left-leaning guy that loves his country. Good for him. Also, it turns out he can't be controlled like the Democrats thought they could control him when they put him in power. He got in, he found his groove, he's doing his thing. I still agree with him on very little. Just very little. However, being pro-America, that's a good thing. Now, I don't think he'll switch parties. What I do think will happen is if he continues pushing back on the Democrats, they will primary him. They want someone to ride with them in every single thing they say. You don't step out of line with the Democrats. That's not a thing. So that's where I think this leads. I think they either tell him to shut up and get in line, or they primary him. And that's real life. That's what the Democrats do. That's how they act. That's why they're all in step, no matter what. And when they're not, those people, they disappear from the political scene, or disappear, for that matter. But so John Fetterman's walking a thin line here by saying, "Hey, we've got to be pro-America," where the left of the party, they are clearly not. Your Omars and what's that other lady's name? Anyway, you know the example I'm trying to make here. And so, good for you, John Fetterman. Just, hopefully he knows what he's doing more than I do. All right, let's get to Ken Paxton, Politico.com. Ken Paxton here in Texas. Look, they tried to impeach him because of what went on around his affairs. What was that, last year or the year before? And so it's come out his wife's leaving him on biblical grounds. Yeah, we all knew he was having an affair. We all knew that. But that doesn't, there's a lot of times I can agree with the policies and not the person. And so, yeah, I'm not glad he did that. However, I've got things in my life I'm not glad I did either, right? You've got things in your life you're not glad you did. I'm not saying go out and cheat on your spouse. That's not something I've ever been a part of. But that being said, I think this is him and his camp getting ahead of getting ready to primary John Cornyn. Because look, Ken Paxton's a nut cutter, buddy. He's hardcore, in everything. He's protected and sued on behalf of Texas, and he's the reason why we've gotten a lot of the gains we've gotten, and he's a lot of the reason why the Biden cartel was contained as much as they were, was because of Ken Paxton. It probably won't be good if he wins in the primary against John Cornyn, because Texas is going to take a lick over it. We're going to hope we get an attorney general as good as Ken Paxton, which is tough to get. However, and look, I've got people that I'm close to that are heavy in the John Cornyn camp, and can give you a lot of reasons why they're in the John Cornyn camp. However, to me it seems that John Cornyn has gone left, has given into the swamp. And I think that's the deal, right? Whenever someone goes to Washington, just from the outside looking in, they go with good intentions most of the time. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the country. We're going to make this a better place. And then it's like they just they just get eaten up. They just get taken in by the swamp. And so then to go against the political, because what's John Cornyn, number 2 or 3 in the power structure of the Republican side of the Senate now? So there's a war chest behind him. Now, I like some of these guys, Barrett that's in the primary, and a couple of these other guys that are going to be in this primary against Cornyn. However, you need a war chest, and you need somebody that's a fighter, who's no holds barred, to come in and take on. Ken Paxton's that person, I believe. Now, we'll see if this just completely derails him. I don't think it does. I think that's why it comes out so early before the primary starts, next January. Like, let's get this out. Let's move on. Let's have some other talking points. It'll be old news by then. So, anyway, we need a fighter, especially if you're going to fight, John Cornyn or any established leader like that. Now, look, is John Cornyn better than a hardcore liberal? Yes. But we need somebody that's with us every time that we know. And, I haven't looked at his voting record lately, but I need somebody that's, not on the edge of me having to worry about which way they're going. I need somebody to be with us, to be hardcore conservative, and just go in and win this thing. And look, if the people of Texas don't want that, then Paxton won't win. Right? If I'm in the minority, it will show, and I'll accept that. And then I'll get behind whoever the nominee is. But this is the way the system works, so let's use it. All right. Here's something interesting. This is from CNN.com. Excuse me. The Trump admin just hired 3 outspoken climate contrarians. Scientists are worried what comes next. That's exactly right. And the article goes in to go, these guys don't agree with the consensus. Then it's not a consensus. The scientific consensus. There are plenty of scientists that will tell you climate change isn't a man-made disaster as it's presented. That's part of it. I'm glad the Trump admin hired these people. This is what we need. We continue to get ripped off and stolen from over this climate hoax. It gets all over me that we buy the rare earth materials from China, that we give this money away to all these liberal groups that go bankrupt, that we stifle our industry, that we stifle American growth, all in the name of climate. If you hold that we've been here however many billion years, you're telling me in 140 years that we've hurt the earth so much that it can't come back? No. And then I was on a podcast, I don't know, in the last few months, where I went on to say, hey, I don't believe in fossil fuels. Talk about some of the comments I saw on that. I believe in oil. I believe in natural gas. I believe these things are all there. I believe they're naturally occurring resources, because I believe in a creator. And look, we don't even have to get into how he did it. I believe God put into motion the creation of the earth. Now, whether that's 7 days or whether that's evolution, however you want to get it, which I don't think there's any proof for evolution. But if that's the way it did, in the end, I believe God gave us the resources to be able to use to do what we need to do. He didn't do it through, how many dinosaurs were there that there's just oil fields everywhere? And then if you go back to some of the data a few years ago, some of the oil fields are filling back up. Well, did they create more dinosaurs down there? Were there more fossilized plants down there? No. I believe it's a naturally occurring resource, just like an aquifer or a spring or whatever, gas pockets. However, whatever it is, methane gas leaches through coal mines. It's created by the earth. So yes, these are naturally occurring resources. Are we on a limited basis of it because of fossil fuels? No. Now, can we use it all? maybe. I mean, I get, but just like the whole deforestation push, a lot of trees are planted. So it's just a wild concept to me that people are so ingrained in the climate religion, and I'm just not one of them. It's just not where I am. And look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. A lot of people think I am. But anyway, good for the Trump administration. Of course, CNN's coming out taking shots at them, and that's that. Okay, going to be a quick show today. I want to cover this Epstein thing one more time. I think, look, Trump's only been in the office since January 20th, so not even, today's the 11th. Oh, thank heaven, 7/11. I think, maybe there's been some mismanagement. Maybe there's some talking points have been, hadn't gone the way they thought they would. All in all, I believe this to be a distraction purposely highlighted by people that are anti-Trump. They're trying to find things that he hasn't done in order to... There's about to be a blower come by. They're trying to find things that he hasn't done in order to derail the sight of the progress that has been made. Now, maybe I'm way off, but I believe a lot crazier stuff than that. I think it's well within our realm of reality. It's in our Overton window to say, oh, the media manipulates us. There are bad actors that manipulate us to attain certain goals. They've tried to put Donald Trump in prison. They've tried to take away his businesses. They've tried to take away his properties. They've tried to bankrupt him. They've tried to kill him. They've tried to do it. So you think it's below them to say, oh, this Epstein thing, it's a big deal and it's going to end his presidency? I'd say this is one of the lighter attacks that there is on the man. Now, that being said, yeah, he's giving them some ammo, and I think that's why he's not worried about it. Every time everybody gets all worried about Donald Trump not doing what's right, he comes back and proves them wrong. So I'm just not jumping on this so quick that I'm like, oh no, Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Because time and again, he has proven that he knows what he's doing, that he has outthought them, that he has a good enough team around him to make everything coalesce and flow. Why all of the sudden would that just stop happening? Why all of the sudden would everything he's built just all of a sudden not make sense? When the whole time you've been told it doesn't make sense. The whole time you've been told it won't work. The whole time you've been told Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. I promise you, this guy just stopped with this blower right by the window. Anyway, the whole time you've been told Donald Trump doesn't have a clue. The whole time you've been told he doesn't, but every time it's proved that he does. Why all of a sudden now do you lose faith? Because a bunch of people who you don't respect tell you that? Okay. I'm good with that. Except for that's stupid. I don't believe what they say any other time. Why do I believe them already? Why do I believe them right now? Anyway, I'm just saying, let's don't get all worked up about it. Yeah, now, and yes, it's a horrible thing what Epstein did. It's a horrible thing, all the allegations. I'm not denying any of that. I'm just saying there's a plan. We have to let it work. And that's where we are. All right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you all have a great day. Have a great weekend. I hope God blesses each and every one of you. And we'll be back. We'll do it all again next week. Have a good weekend.